Some truths remain hidden for decades, waiting patiently between sacred pages until someone has the courage to look. Claire Mitchell never imagined that clearing out her deceased father's house would lead her to discover a secret buried for 53 years. A simple handwritten note, carefully folded inside a worn Bible, would reveal that everything she believed about her family was a lie. And the woman she had always called her mother was not who she claimed to be. The truth was there, written in faded blue ink, waiting to destroy and rebuild an entire world. Claire Mitchell was on her knees on the dusty floor of her father's attic in Charleston, South Carolina, surrounded by decades of memories packed into cardboard boxes. She was 47 and had just lost her father, Thomas Mitchell, at 91. He had passed away peacefully in his sleep, leaving behind a house full of history and a daughter who now needed to decide what to do with a lifetime of accumulated possessions. It was August 2024, and the suffocating heat of the attic made the work even harder. Claire wiped the sweat from her forehead as she opened another box, this one full of old books. Her father had always been an avid reader, especially of religious texts. The family Bible, a 1950 edition with a worn brown leather cover, lay at the bottom of the box, wrapped in a protective cloth. Claire picked it up with reverence. This was the Bible her father carried to church every Sunday throughout her childhood. The same one he read every night before bed. The pages were marked, underlined, full of notes in the margins in Thomas's meticulous handwriting. She began to carefully flip through it, smiling as she saw her father's favorite passages marked and remarked over the years. It was then that something fell from between the pages of the Book of Psalms. A piece of yellowed paper, folded into 4 parts, with the edges darkened by time. Claire picked it up from the floor, curious. It wasn't her father's handwriting. It was a feminine script, delicate but urgent, as if it had been written in haste. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. The date at the top read, May 3rd, 1971. 53 years ago, 3 years before Claire was born. She began to read, and with every word, the floor beneath her feet seemed to disappear. The note began, Thomas, if you are reading this, then I am already gone. But before I leave, I need you to know the truth about Claire. Claire's heart stopped. She read the sentence again, disbelieving. About Claire? But she wouldn't be born for another 3 years after that date. How could there be a note about her written before she even existed? With hands now visibly shaking, she continued reading. And what she discovered in the following lines would shatter everything she had ever believed about who she was. Claire sat down heavily on the dusty attic floor, the note trembling in her hands. She reread the first line several times, as if the words might change meaning if she looked long enough. But they didn't change. They remained there, written in faded blue ink, silently destroying the foundation of everything she knew. Thomas, if you are reading this, then I am already gone. But before I leave, I need you to know the truth about Claire. She is not Martha's daughter. Claire is my daughter. Our daughter. Claire had to stop reading. Her breathing was shallow, her chest tight. Not Martha's daughter? Martha was her mother. Martha Mitchell, who died of cancer when Claire was only 12. The woman who rocked her to sleep, who made pancakes on Saturdays, who taught her how to ride a bicycle. How could she not be her mother? And who the hell had written that note? With visibly shaking fingers, Claire continued reading. I know that you and Martha have raised our little girl with all the love I could never give. I know it was the right choice to leave her with you when she was only 6 months old. I was too young, too scared, too broken to be a mother. You offered a better life, a stable family, and I accepted because I loved her more than I loved myself. Martha agreed to raise her as her own. You moved to Charleston soon after, starting over where no one knew the truth. And all these years, I kept my promise to stay away. But now, with cancer rapidly consuming me, I cannot leave without recording this. Claire deserves to know where she came from. My name is Catherine Reynolds. I was 17 when I became pregnant with you, Thomas. You were 23, promised to Martha, with a bright future ahead. Our affair was brief, wrong in every sense, but it produced something pure, our daughter. You made the honorable choice. You married Martha as planned, but you took responsibility for our child when I pleaded for help. Martha had a heart bigger than the ocean for agreeing to raise her fiancé's child with another woman. She gave Claire everything I couldn't: stability, a home, a respectable family. I am leaving this note in your Bible because I know you read it every night. One day, when the time is right, you will find these words. When Claire is an adult, strong enough to understand, please tell her about me. It doesn't have to be immediately. But someday, let her know that her biological mother loved her enough to let her go. There is a box buried in the backyard of the old house in Beaufort, under the magnolia tree near the barn. Inside are photos of me, letters I wrote but never sent, and the blanket I wrapped her in the day I handed her over to you. If Claire wants to know where she came from, everything is there. Forgive me, Thomas, for bringing this burden back. Forgive me for not being strong enough. But thank you every day for you and Martha being strong for me. With eternal love, Catherine Reynolds, May 3rd, 1971 inch. Claire finished reading, and the note fell from her hands. She stared blankly at the attic wall, trying to process what she had just discovered. Her mother was not her biological mother. Her father had had an affair before the marriage. There was another woman, Catherine Reynolds, who had given birth to her and given her away. Martha knew. Martha always knew. And yet she raised Claire with unconditional love, never revealing the truth, never making Claire feel different or less loved. Tears began to stream down Claire's face, but she didn't know if she was crying out of loss, anger, confusion, or gratitude. Her father knew too. Throughout his life, Thomas carried this secret. And from the note, it was clear that Catherine expected him to tell the truth when Claire was an adult. But he never did. Why? Why did he carry this to his grave without ever saying a word? Claire picked up the note again, rereading the part about the box buried in Beaufort. Did the old house still exist? Was the magnolia tree still there? And if it was, would the box still be buried after 53 years? She had to know. She had to find that box. She needed to know Catherine Reynolds, the woman who gave her life but never had the chance to know her. And more importantly, she needed to understand why her father chose to take this secret to his grave instead of giving her the truth Catherine had asked him to share. Claire wiped away her tears, carefully tucked the note into her purse, and descended from the attic with renewed determination. Her journey to discover who she really was had just begun. Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat on the guest bed in her father's house, rereading Catherine Reynolds' note in the faint light of the bedside lamp. Every word was analyzed, every sentence dissected, searching for a deeper meaning. For the first time in 47 years, Claire questioned everything about her identity. She picked up her phone and looked at the background photo. Her two adult children, Jake, 24, and Emma, 22. Did they have the right to know? That the grandmother they knew and loved was not their biological grandmother? That there was another woman, a complete stranger, whose DNA ran in their veins? Claire decided to wait. First, she needed to understand the whole story before blowing up anyone else's world. At 6 in the morning, she was already in the car, driving the 2 hours to Beaufort. The small coastal town where her father grew up, where he met Martha, where, apparently, he had a brief affair with a 17-year-old girl named Catherine Reynolds. Claire had never paid much attention to her father's stories of youth in Beaufort. They were just vague memories of a time before she existed. But now every detail mattered. She tried to recall if he had ever mentioned the name Catherine. Nothing came to mind. Arriving in Beaufort, Claire went straight to the municipal registry office. If Catherine Reynolds had died in 1971, there would be a record. A friendly middle-aged woman named Doris assisted her at the counter. "I'm looking for information about someone who died here in 1971, Claire explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "Catherine Reynolds." Doris typed on the computer, frowning. "Catherine Reynolds. Yes, here it is. Deceased on June 18, 1971. She was only 18 years old, poor thing. Cause of death, leukemia." Claire felt a pang in her heart. Catherine was only 18 when she died, just a year older than Emma. A whole life stolen by illness, but not before giving birth to a daughter she loved enough to let go. "Is there information about relatives?" Claire asked. Doris scanned the screen. Parents listed as John and Evelyn Reynolds. Both deceased now. There is no mention of children or other dependents. Of course, there wouldn't be. That was the secret. Catherine gave up the baby, moved with her parents away from the shame, and died months later, taking the secret with her. Except for the note hidden in the Bible. "Do you know the old Reynolds property?" Claire asked. "Does the house still exist?" Doris thought for a moment. The Reynolds had a farm on Old Sheldon Church Road. The house is still there, but it was sold decades ago. A family named Patterson lives there now. Claire thanked her and wrote down the address. 20 minutes later, she was standing in front of a charming white farmhouse surrounded by ancient oak trees draped in Spanish moss. And there, in the side yard near a faded red barn, stood a magnificent magnolia, its white flowers exuding a sweet perfume in the warm morning air. Claire got out of the car, her heart racing. Was she really about to knock on a stranger's door and ask permission to dig in their backyard? But she had come this far. She couldn't turn back now. A gray-haired woman opened the door, smiling warmly. "Can I help you?" Claire took a deep breath. "My name is Claire Mitchell. I know this is going to sound strange, but my father grew up on this property many years ago. He recently passed away, and, well, I discovered that something important might be buried in the backyard, under that magnolia tree. Something that belongs to my family." The woman, who introduced herself as Susan Patterson, studied Claire with curiosity but no judgment. "Buried? How long ago?" 53 years, Claire admitted, expecting the woman to send her away. But Susan surprised her. 53 years? Well, then it's more yours than ours. My husband and I bought this property in 1985. If there's something buried from before that, you have every right to look." She paused. "Was your father John Reynolds?" Claire shook her head. "No, but I knew someone who lived here. Catherine Reynolds." Susan's face lit up with recognition. "Catherine. My goodness, it's been so long since I heard that name. The old neighbors sometimes talk about the Reynolds family. The daughter who died so young. What a tragedy." Claire felt a lump in her throat. "She was important to my family." Susan gently touched Claire's arm. "Then let's find what you're looking for. My husband is in the barn. He can help dig." 40 minutes later, Claire was on her knees in the damp soil under the magnolia, watching Robert Patterson carefully dig. The shovel hit something solid. A metal box. With trembling hands, Claire wiped the dirt from the rusted lid and slowly opened it. Inside, wrapped in protective plastic that had kept the moisture away for decades, was a pink baby blanket, yellowed letters tied with string, and black and white photos of a beautiful girl with dark hair and bright eyes. Catherine Reynolds, her biological mother. And for the first time in 47 years, Claire was looking at her own face. Claire sat on the grass beneath the magnolia tree, the metal box open in her lap, completely oblivious to the dirt staining her clothes. Susan and Robert Patterson, realizing the intensity of the moment, had discreetly gone back inside the house, giving her privacy. The photos were what struck her most. Catherine Reynolds had her exact eyes, the same gray-green hue, the same almond shape. The face shape was identical, the jawline, even the dimple on the left side when she smiled. How had Claire never noticed she didn't look like Martha? But then, when you love someone as your mother from birth, you don't look for differences. You look for similarities, and you find them because love creates its own truths. There were about a dozen photos. Catherine on a swing, laughing. Catherine holding a kitten. Catherine at what looked like a school dance, wearing a light blue dress, beautiful and radiant. All the photos showed a girl full of life, with no shadow of the illness that would take her so soon. Claire picked up the pink baby blanket. It was soft, hand-knitted, with a delicate floral pattern. This was the blanket that wrapped her when Catherine handed her over to her father and Martha. She held it against her face, imagining that 17-year-old girl wrapping her newborn daughter for the last time before saying goodbye. The letters were tied with worn string. Claire carefully untied it and opened the first one. It was dated August 1970, just a few months before Claire was born. "My dear daughter I haven't met yet. Today I felt you kick for the first time. It was like butterflies inside me, and I cried because it is so beautiful and so sad at the same time. You are growing inside me, but I know I can't keep you. Mom and Dad say it's the only option. Thomas says he and Martha will love you as their own. And I believe them, but my heart is still broken. I am 17 and have just been diagnosed with leukemia. The doctors say the treatment could harm you, so I'm waiting until you are born to start. Every day I spend without treatment is a day I give to you. It's my first gift as a mother, my life for your chance at life. I want you to know that I am not giving you up because I don't love you. I am letting you go because I love you more than anything. Thomas is a good man. He made a mistake with me, but he is doing the right thing. And Martha has a heart of gold for agreeing to raise you. They will give you everything I cannot, a future, a family, a chance. If you ever read this, know that every moment I carried you was precious. Know that my last conscious thought will be of you. And know that wherever I am, I will always be proud of you. With all the love a heart can hold, your mother, Catherine." Claire was weeping openly now, tears falling onto the yellowed paper. Catherine had postponed her cancer treatment to ensure she was born healthy. She sacrificed her own life for Claire to have a chance at hers. There were 6 more letters, all written during the pregnancy and the first 6 months of Claire's life. Each was a window into the broken heart of a girl who loved her daughter, but knew she couldn't raise her. Catherine wrote about the day Claire was born, about holding her for the first time, about how perfect she was. She wrote about the pain of handing her over at 6 months, when the doctors said her cancer was rapidly advancing, and she needed to start aggressive treatment immediately. The last letter was different. It was addressed to Claire but written to be read when she was an adult. My dearest Claire, if you are reading this, you have found the box. It means Thomas kept his promise to hold on to this for you. I hope you are grown, strong, and fulfilled. I hope Martha was the wonderful mother I know she would be. I hope your life has been full of love. Do not be angry with your father for hiding this. I asked him to wait until you were ready. Do not be angry with Martha for raising you as her own. That was the greatest gift anyone could ever give me. And please, do not feel like you were abandoned. You were loved so deeply that I chose what was best for you rather than what was easiest for me. You carry my DNA, my appearance, maybe some of my talents. But who you are has been shaped by the people who raised you with love. That makes you their daughter in every way that matters. Live well, my sweet girl. Be kind. Love deeply. And know that giving you to the world was my greatest accomplishment. Forever your mother, Catherine. Claire folded the letter carefully and held it to her chest. She finally understood. Catherine didn't abandon her. Catherine loved her in the only way she could, by letting her go so she could have the life she deserved. Claire spent the rest of the day in Beaufort, sitting in a seaside cafe, rereading Catherine's letters over and over. Every word was a piece of a puzzle that finally fit together, revealing a picture she never knew was incomplete. But one question burned in her mind. Why did her father never tell her the truth? Catherine had explicitly asked in the note left in the Bible for Thomas to reveal the story when Claire was an adult. She was 47 now. She had decades of adult life during which her father could have shared the secret. But he chose silence until death. Claire pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. It was answered on the 3rd ring. Claire? My goodness, how long has it been? It was the voice of Patricia Holbrook, Martha's best friend since childhood and practically an aunt to Claire. Hi, Aunt Pat. Sorry to call so suddenly. I need to ask you something about Mom and Dad. Something important. There was a pause. Of course, dear. What do you want to know? Claire took a deep breath. Did you know that Martha wasn't my biological mother? The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, Patricia sighed deeply. How did you find out? So you knew. It wasn't a question. Yes, Patricia admitted quietly. Martha told me shortly after you were born. She was so scared, so unsure if she could love you as her own. I told her love doesn't come from blood. It comes from the heart. And I was right, wasn't I? She loved you more than anything. Why did Dad never tell me? Claire's voice trembled. Catherine left clear instructions for him to reveal it when I was an adult. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Can I meet you in person? Some things are hard to explain over the phone. 2 hours later, Claire was sitting in Patricia's living room in Charleston, holding a cup of tea that was growing cold between her hands. The 72-year-old woman sat across from her, carefully choosing her words. Your father planned to tell you, Patricia began. But then Martha got sick. Breast cancer, you were 10. She made Martha promise something before she died. Claire leaned forward. What? Martha made Thomas swear that he would never tell you. She was so afraid you would feel deceived, that you would think her love wasn't real because you didn't share blood. She wanted you to always remember her as your true mother, with no doubts or asterisks. Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. But I would never have thought that. She was dying, Claire. Dying people have irrational fears. And Thomas loved Martha too much to break a deathbed promise. So he carried the secret, even though he knew Catherine wanted you to know. He was caught between 2 women he loved, both asking for opposite things. Claire wiped her tears. It finally made sense. Her father didn't choose silence out of cowardice or selfishness. He chose it out of love for Martha, out of loyalty to a promise made when she was most vulnerable. Did he ever mention Catherine? Claire asked. Patricia nodded. Once, years after Martha died, we were at a mutual friend's wake, and he said something I'll never forget. He said, Pat, sometimes I think I make more mistakes trying to protect the people I love than if I just told the truth. I asked him what he meant, but he just shook his head and changed the subject. Claire looked out the window, watching the sun begin to set over Charleston. Her father had carried this weight alone for decades. The guilt of breaking his promise to Catherine, the burden of keeping his promise to Martha, and the constant doubt whether he was making the right choice. "Aunt Pat, do you think he wanted me to find that note after he died?" Patricia smiled sadly. "I think your father was a wise man. He couldn't break his promise to Martha while he was alive. But he also didn't destroy Catherine's note. He kept it where he knew you would eventually find it. He let fate decide." Claire realized Patricia was right. Her father didn't choose between the two women he loved. He let time and circumstance reveal the truth when it was safe, when Martha couldn't be hurt, when Claire was mature enough to understand the complexity of it all. It was imperfect, but it was human. And in a way, it was love. That night, Claire returned to her father's house in Charleston. The building that had previously felt like just a property to be organized and sold now felt different. Every room held secrets. Every object had a deeper story than she had imagined. She went up to the attic again, this time looking for more clues. If her father had kept Catherine's note in the Bible, perhaps there were other hidden things. She methodically searched boxes, looking for any trace of the buried truth. It was in an old leather suitcase, hidden behind furniture covered with sheets, that Claire found Martha's diary. She hesitated before opening it. Reading someone's diary felt invasive, even if that person had been her mother. But she needed to understand. She needed to know Martha's thoughts on this whole impossible situation. The first relevant entry was dated January 1974, months before Claire was born. "Thomas told me about Catherine today. She is pregnant. The baby is his." My world crumbled. The man I am going to marry in 3 months had an affair with a teenager, and now there is a child on the way. I should cancel everything, run away, never look at him again. But when he cried in my arms, begging for forgiveness, saying it was a terrible mistake, that he loves me more than anything, I saw the real man. Imperfect, scared, but honest. And I love him. God help me, I still love him. Claire flipped the pages, finding more entries from the following months. I met Catherine today. She is 17 and she is dying. Leukemia. She held my hands and begged me to take care of the baby. She said she has no one else, that her parents are old and can't raise a child. I looked into the eyes of that dying girl and saw only love. Love for the child yet to be born. Love enough to hand her over to strangers. How can I say no? Another entry weeks later. I went to church today and prayed for guidance. Father Murphy said God puts challenges in our paths to reveal who we truly are. This baby didn't ask to be born into this complicated situation. She is innocent. And if I truly love Thomas, I must love all parts of him, including this child. I have decided. I will raise her as my own. I will love her as if she had grown inside me. She will never know the difference. Claire wiped away tears she hadn't realized she was shedding. Martha had actively chosen to love her, not out of obligation, but out of compassion and strength of character. The next relevant entry was from November 1974, weeks after Claire was born. Claire came home today. 6 months old, huge green eyes, a smile that lights up the world. Catherine held her for the last time before handing her over to us. I saw a mother saying goodbye to her daughter. I saw pure sacrifice. Catherine died 3 weeks later. I went to the funeral in secret. It was the least I could do. I promised at her grave that Claire would be loved, protected, happy. This is my mission now. The following entries documented Claire's early years. First steps, first words, first day of school. Martha wrote about Claire with such tenderness, such genuine maternal pride, that it was impossible to doubt the authenticity of her love. But it was the last diary entry, written just days before Martha died in 1986, that completely broke Claire. I am dying. The doctors say weeks, maybe days. I made Thomas promise he would never tell Claire about Catherine. I know Catherine wanted her to know, but I can't risk it. I cannot die fearing that my daughter will think our love wasn't real. Because it was real. Every moment was real. She is my daughter in every way that matters. Blood doesn't make family. Love does. And I have loved her from the first second I held her. I made Thomas promise. He didn't want to, said he was breaking a promise to Catherine, but I begged. I used my last strength to make him swear. Was I selfish? Maybe. But I will die in peace knowing that Claire will always remember me as mom, without qualification. Claire closed the diary and hugged it to her chest, sobbing. She finally understood everything. Martha did not ask for silence out of malice or petty insecurity. She asked because she was dying and needed absolute certainty that her love would be remembered as legitimate. And Thomas, trapped between two extraordinary women who loved the same child in different ways, chose to honor the wishes of the wife he was losing. It was not cowardice. It was impossible love navigating impossible situations. Claire realized something profound in that moment. She didn't have one mother. She had two. Catherine, who loved her enough to let her have a better life, and Martha, who loved her enough to make her own life. Both were real. Both were valid. And both deserved to be honored. Claire spent the following week immersed in discoveries. Every opened drawer, every explored box revealed more layers of the complex story that had shaped her life without her knowing. She found birth certificates, the original listing Catherine Reynolds as the mother, and the amended one after legal adoption by Martha. She found photos of a pregnant Catherine, hidden in a manila envelope at the bottom of a locked drawer. But the most impactful discovery came when Claire decided to research the Reynolds family further. At the Beaufort Historical Archive, she found obituary records. Catherine's was brief. Catherine Marie Reynolds, 18, passed away June 18, 1971. Survived by parents John and Evelyn Reynolds. But there was something more. A newspaper clipping from 1970, months before Claire was born. It was a small note in the local news section. Local young woman diagnosed with leukemia postpones treatment. The article briefly mentioned that Catherine Reynolds, a high school senior, had chosen to delay chemotherapy for months due to personal circumstances. The personal circumstances were Claire. Catherine literally chose to give up months of her life so Claire could be born healthy. Doctors must have pleaded with her to start treatment immediately, but she refused until she gave birth. Claire sat on the archive floor, the clipping trembling in her hands. Her existence had cost Catherine's life. Not technically, perhaps the leukemia would have killed her anyway, but those crucial months of delayed treatment certainly reduced her chances. For the first time, Claire felt not just gratitude, but a deep, unpayable debt. Catherine didn't just give up raising her. She gave up her own chance at survival. That night, Claire made a decision. She called Jake and Emma and asked them to come to their grandfather's house. It was time to tell the truth. When her children arrived the next day, Claire sat them down in the living room. She spread Catherine's photos on the coffee table, along with the letters, Martha's diary, and the original note found in the Bible. "I need to tell you something about our family," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "About who I really am." She told them everything. The affair between Thomas and Catherine. The pregnancy. The cancer diagnosis. Catherine's sacrifice. Martha's impossible kindness. The secret kept for decades. And finally, the note that revealed it all 53 years later. Jake, always the more analytical one, studied the photos in silence. "You are identical to her," he finally said. "It's stunning. How did no one ever notice?" "Because no one was looking," Claire replied. "When you love someone as family, you don't question. You just accept." Emma, more emotional, had tears streaming down her face. "Grandma Martha knew the whole time? And still loved you like that? She loved me perhaps even more because of it," Claire said softly. "It was a conscious choice for her, not a biological accident. She chose to be my mother every single day." Emma picked up one of Catherine's letters. "And our biological great-grandmother died so you could live. I have no words." "I know," Claire agreed. "I've spent the whole week trying to process it. But I realized something important. I didn't lose one mother and gain another. I always had two. One who gave me life biologically, and another who gave me life in every other way. Both loved me enough to make impossible choices." Jake looked at his mother with new understanding. "What are you going to do now? With this information?" Claire had already thought about it. "I am going to honor both of them. I'm going to visit Catherine's grave for the first time. I'm going to thank her for the sacrifice she made. And I'm going to visit Martha's grave and thank her for every moment of love she gave me. Both deserve to be remembered. Can we go with you?" Emma asked softly. Claire smiled through her tears. "I would love that." 3 days later, Claire, Jake, and Emma were in the small cemetery in Beaufort, searching among old headstones until they found Catherine Marie Reynolds. It was simple, just a name and dates. No mention of a daughter or family. Claire knelt and placed a bouquet of white magnolias in front of the stone. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for loving me enough to let me go. Thank you for choosing my life over your own. I lived well, Catherine. I was loved. I was happy. And now I will make sure you are never forgotten." Emma knelt beside her mother and placed her hand on the stone. "Thank you, great-grandmother, for everything." There, in the silence of the cemetery, 3 generations finally connected across time, sacrifice, and love. 6 months had passed since Claire found the note in her father's Bible. 6 months that had completely transformed her understanding of identity, family, and love. Claire was now sitting in her home office, looking at the wall that had become a sanctuary for both her mothers. On one side, framed photos of Martha, holding baby Claire on Claire's first day of school, teaching her to ride a bicycle. On the other side, the restored photos of Catherine, young, radiant, full of life before the illness stole her future. Between the 2 photo collections, Claire had hung something special, a quilt made by a local artisan, incorporating pieces of Catherine's original pink baby blanket and pieces of Martha's favorite apron. 2 legacies stitched together, just as the 2 women had intertwined in Claire's life without ever truly meeting. The decision to make the story public came gradually. First, Claire shared it with extended family. Cousins she had barely seen in years suddenly reappeared, sharing their own stories of family secrets and hidden truths. Patricia Holbrook cried with relief that she could finally speak openly about something she had kept for decades. Then, Claire decided to write it all down. Not as an exposé or scandal, but as a testimony to complex love and impossible choices. She submitted her story to a local human interest magazine, and to her surprise, it was published in the March issue. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of letters poured in from people sharing similar stories. Hidden adoptions, secret paternities, families rebuilt in unconventional ways. A 70-year-old woman wrote that she finally had the courage to tell her children they were conceived via donor. A man revealed he discovered at 50 that his father was not biological. Story after story of secrets, love, and eventually healing. Claire realized that the story was not just hers. It belonged to millions of families navigating complicated truths in a world that still values blood connections above all else. She also took practical steps. She worked with the Beaufort City Council to place a small commemorative plaque near the old Reynolds property, honoring Catherine Marie Reynolds as a young mother whose love and sacrifice exemplified extraordinary courage. The dedication ceremony was small but significant, with Susan and Robert Patterson present, along with a few elderly neighbors who still remembered the Reynolds family. Jake and Emma became deeply involved in the journey. Emma started an oral history project, interviewing older people in Charleston about family secrets and how to reconcile late-breaking truths. Jake, a lawyer, began pro bono work helping people navigate legal issues related to old adoptions and sealed records. The family that was almost lost in secrets was now closer than ever, strengthened by honesty. On a September afternoon, Claire returned to the cemetery where Martha was buried. She hadn't visited since her father's funeral 3 months ago. Thomas had been buried next to Martha, as he always wished. Claire placed fresh flowers on both graves. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Dad," she said softly, sitting on the grass between them. "I know you might be worried that finding out about Catherine changed how I feel about you. But it hasn't. If anything, it made my love grow." She wiped away tears that began to fall. "I understand now why you kept the secret. I understand the impossible love that put you in that position. And I understand that every decision you made was out of love for me." Claire took a deep breath. "Martha, you didn't stop being my mother because I shared DNA with Catherine. You are my mother because of every late night you stayed up when I was sick, every word of encouragement, every hug. Nothing changes that." She turned toward her father's grave. "And Dad, thank you for leaving the note where I could find it. I know you couldn't tell me while you were alive because of your promise to Mom. But you ensured that eventually I would know. That was a gift, not a betrayal." Claire sat there for a long hour, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in months. She finally understood that family was not a simple mathematical equation. It was a complex tapestry woven from love, choice, sacrifice, and sometimes secrets kept for the right reasons. She had 2 mothers. One gave her life, the other gave her living. Both gave her love. And that was more than enough. It was perfect in its imperfection. Claire stood up, kissed her fingers, and touched both headstones. "I love you. Both of you. Always." As she walked toward her car, she felt something she didn't expect: complete gratitude. Not despite the complexity, but because of it. Her story wasn't simple, but it was beautiful. And finally, 53 years later, all secrets had been revealed, all truths told, and all love acknowledged for what it had always been: real, deep, and eternal. Claire's story reminds us that family transcends biology, that secrets kept out of love can finally bring healing when revealed at the right time, that two women can be a mother to the same child in different, yet equally profound ways, and that it is never too late to honor those who loved us through impossible choices. Today, Claire lives in peace with her complex truth, honoring both women who made her who she is. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel for more stories of hope and reconciliation. What family truth changed your life?